taking a look at the Red Komodo and using it in an extremely small configuration here in downtown Fort Lauderdale. This is one of the few Red cameras that you can really get in a super small compact setup like this. Footage was taken in a super small setup using the Red Komodo in this handheld configuration and on the DJI RS2. I really enjoy using the Komodo because it can be really small like a mirrorless camera, but the codec is just so amazing that I can get the look really easy and a lot quicker than a lot of the other cameras I use like the FX30. Let's talk about the rigs I used with the Komodo in this video. So here's my handheld rig that I use, the SmallRig cage you can see right here. And I've got a SmallRig wooden handle on this side, which is very comfortable. And then 2 BP batteries. Very simple. Occasionally I put a monitor on top. It really depends on what I'm filming, how critical the focus has to be. And then I've been using the Sirui 75mm, which is a little bit telephoto, but because of the global shutter and how the overall weight distribution tends to be on the Komodo, it's been pretty decent using this in the handheld configuration on Komodo. I've used the 35mm from Canon that has image stabilization, and you can definitely tell the image stabilization helps in the footage, but me personally, I like the footage that I'm getting out of the 75mm and the 35mm from Sirui a lot more than Canon's 35mm. I mean, it is a budget lens, and on top of that, those kinds of lenses from Canon, the RF lenses, they're made to be used with Canon bodies, and those bodies do some things in camera to actually fix the image, which the Red cameras obviously don't do. And you don't need those fixes with a lot of these lenses that really aren't necessarily made for Canon cameras. There's multiple versions of these lenses pretty much for every mirrorless mount out there. Now this is the 35mm, and I use it a lot on the gimbal with the Komodo. I've been using it with the RS2, the Komodo for years, even before I sold my last Komodo. And the reason I like this 35mm is it doesn't weigh a lot. There's also gear rings provided for this 35mm, which there aren't for the other lenses, but they're a little too telephoto anyways. So I literally just pop this gear ring on, although getting it on the RF version takes a second just because the bottom of the mount is a little different than the other 35 that they make for like the E mount or the MFT. But I have this follow focus ring on here. I can just pull focus from the front wheel of the RS2, or if you have an RS3 Pro, it's pretty much the same thing. And I could pull my focus and use my phone as a monitor, have a completely wireless setup on the RS2. And as you saw from some of that wedding footage and some of the footage I took with my friend Claire, I can just get really quick, nice cinematic looking shots with a relatively small setup. I mean, in the past, to get a similar setup, you're going to have a much bigger rig and even need a much bigger gimbal, where the RS2, RS3 Pro isn't the smallest gimbal. I definitely have smaller ones, but it can take the whole configuration of the Komodo without this side handle right here and something like my 35mm from Sirui. I even use the Komodo with the Sigma 18-35 and it works perfectly. I get full range of motion, pretty much the same setup as well, but the 18-35 does weigh a decent amount more than this Sirui, but I pretty much use the 18-35 at this point on the gimbal when I need autofocus. If I'm going to use manual focus, although I can use the 18-35 because I do have a manual focus ring on there, I like using the Sirui anamorphic. It just paired with the Komodo, you get such a cool look that even when I've used this other version of the Sirui 35 I have for the FX30 we're filming on right now, it does make the FX30 footage look really cool. It just doesn't have the same spark that I see in the footage, the actual Komodo sensor. I just love the color science mashed with this lens, and it's been able to get me some really great looking images For a low price for my clients, the Red Komodo, it's not a new camera. It's been out for almost 4 years now. So why am I talking about it here 4 years later when I was talking about it a lot 4 years ago? And the reason being is, since it's been out for a while, you can get pretty decent deals on the Red Komodo used, and the codec is so efficient, and you can get specifically the Komodo in such a small setup, like a mirrorless camera, like the FX30 or the FX3, that it's really worth talking about it again, just because you can buy a Komodo for pretty much the price of a brand new FX3. And in my opinion, for the money, depending on what you do, I rather have a Red Komodo over the FX3, but it also depends on the kind of work you're doing. It's why I also have the FX30 for specific work where maybe I need autofocus or I need an even smaller setup with a smaller lens. It's nice to have different tools in the kit for different gigs. I've really enjoyed using this setup over the past few years, even though it's been a nice little year break from the Komodo. It's nice to come back to it. So if you have any questions, I'm going to be doing more Komodo content here on the channel. So make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to see more content like this, because the Komodo is back in play. And although it's a few years old now, it's a really great camera, and the codec just helps me get exactly where I need to go a lot quicker than using other cameras like the FX30, as much as I love it. I think for now, the FX30 is going to kind of be my podcasting camera, my studio camera, and the Komodo is going to come back to being my gig camera unless I need autofocus. So I'm excited to be back in the Red ecosystem. So like I said, stay tuned. My name's Geoff Fagien. Thank you for joining me as always, and I will catch you in the next video.